Hey guys, and how's it going? Today I'm going to bring you guys a Ret Pally PvP guide, or crash course, whatever you want to call it really. It's basically a guide by a guy who has every class max level. I don't know, I played Ret Pally a decent amount. People always say that I seem like I'm doing more damage than their Ret Pally does, so I guess I'll make a guide on what I do. Anyway, beginning with your first ability, Avenging Wrath. Everyone knows what this is. It's basically just wings. It gives you flat damage increase and a flat healing increase for 35 seconds when you do have a decent amount of traits spec'd into this, which increases it by 15 seconds. So it's like a 30% damage increase for 30 seconds. Second, Blade of Justice. It's basically just a holy generator ability on an 8-second cooldown. It does a decent amount of physical damage. And then this interacts with it too, which is whenever you use a holy power spending ability, your next Blade of Justice, which is this that I just talked about, will be increased by 24%, or 32%, sorry. Next ability is Blessing of Freedom. Everyone knows what this is. If you're rooted, it basically grants you immunity to any snare or slowing effects, so freezes, hamstring, any type of slow. Blessing of Protection, makes it so physical attacks can't hit someone. So if I throw that on that guy, he's basically not going to be able to get hit by a Demon Hunter, Ret Pally, Fury Warrior, Frosty K. Basically all that stuff, but it does put forbearance on them, which means you can't lay on hands them or do anything like that. Cleanse Toxins, I don't even fucking use this. It seems pretty useless. I mean, maybe if like there was a really hard poison or disease effect on you, you'd want to use it, but I haven't even encountered that yet. So don't use that. Crusader Strike the target for some physical damage, maximum 2 charges, generates 1 holy power. This is your main holy power generator, which is what you use for your holy power spender, which is your Templar's Verdict. Going on to Divine Shield, everyone knows what this is. It's bubble, makes you immune to everything for 8 seconds, and then there's a talent that triggers it automatically, which I do take in most scenarios. Divine Steed is a new spell in Legion, in case you don't know what it is. Basically, a paladin can mount. Did not mean to pop my wings there. A paladin can mount whenever they want to for like 3 seconds, I think. 3 seconds. Usable while indoors or in combat. So usually you're going to want to use Freedom and then the mount to get away if you're trying to run away, or if you're trying to catch up to someone, you can use Divine Steed. And you basically just get a free mount for 3 seconds. Divine Storm, it's an AoE holy dump. Usually if there's 3 or more people, you're going to want to use this because it'll hit all of them, and it does heal you when you're talented into... I'll turn that off. Every time I record this, I'm always like, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Wherever it is, that thing. Wait, there it is. It heals you for something, wherever it is. I don't know. Basically, Divine Storm heals you for a little bit, but don't rely on that heal because it's definitely not significant enough to keep you alive. Flash of Light, it's basically just your heal. Every hybrid class has this. They have some sort of heal that they can press. For Paladins, it's Flash of Light. Greater Blessing of Kings, it basically makes it so you absorb 77,000 damage every 6 seconds for like an hour. And then this basically makes it so you generate 1% of your max health and mana per 10 seconds. When you have both these on, it gives you a Blessing of the Ashbringer buff, which is a artifact trait if you're into the 4th trait of your artifact already. Going on to the next page of the spellbook, Hammer of Justice. It's just a 6-second stun. It's 10-yard range. You can get a yard or range increase, I'm pretty sure, with honor talent, but... And if hindrances are one and only slow, it's the only slow that... It's like on a 30-second cooldown, which I'm pretty sure we're the only class that has... Only melee class that has a slow that you just can't spam, really. Which, I guess it makes sense since we have freedom, but if you're going against someone that just kites you around, you're pretty boned. Hand of Reckoning, it's a taunt, you don't use it in PvP. Judgment, this is an ability that kind of your whole rotation would get based around, really. Judges a target and one other nearby enemy, dealing holy damage and causing them to take 27% increased damage from your holy power spenders. So that would be Templar's Verdict, Divine Storm, Justicar's Vengeance, anything that spends holy powers, it's going to have its damage increased. Second, Justicar's Vengeance is basically Templar's Verdict, except it heals you and it does increase damage when someone's stunned. This is good with certain talent setups, which I'll be talking about in a little bit. Lay on Hands, it heals you to full health. You can use it in battlegrounds. I don't think you can use it in arenas, otherwise that'd be pretty stupid, honestly, but Lay on hands, use it in battlegrounds. It's basically like a bubble, except not. You don't get immune and you get full health. It's like a reset button, really. Our interrupt, rebuke. It's an interrupt. Every class has an interrupt. If you don't know what an interrupt is, I'm sorry. I don't know. Shield Vengeance. This is new in Legion. Creates a barrier of holy light that absorbs, say, 600,000 damage for 15 seconds. When the barrier is consumed, all damage absorbed is dealt as holy damage divided across all enemies within 8 yards. So this is really good at 1v1s, I'd say. Going against Warrior, Rogue. Rogues can cloak it, but usually they won't. Demon Hunter. Anyone in a 1v1 situation, this will do however much damage you absorb, it'll launch it right back at them, basically. So it's kind of like a bubble, but not really. And it's on a 1.5 minute cooldown. I like this ability. I've always had it bound, and I've always liked it. Templar's Verdict, as I've said before, just a holy power spender, your main holy power spender that you're probably going to be using on most targets. And then your artifact ability, Lake of Ashes, Lash Out the Ashbringer, dealing 315,000 radiant damage and an additional 320,000 over 6 seconds to all enemies within 12 yards in front of you, and reducing movement speed by 50%. So this is another slow, I guess. I've never really used this for the slow. Usually I just use it for the holy power that it does give you. It gives you 5 holy powers, so usually you're going to want to line this up somewhat in your burst and when your judgment is on someone, and I'll be talking about that later. Everything else is about the same. Retribution is, I guess, another thing to keep track of. Hearteth Crusader, you don't really need to, because it's just a mount increase speed. Your Mastery increases judgment damage by 34% and causes judgment to increase damage taken from your holy power spenders by 17%. So this just buffs the amount of damage people take from your holy power spenders when you do judgment someone. And then Retribution is the other thing I'd keep track of in possibly Battlegrounds, and it basically increases your damage done by 20% and reduces the damage you take by 30%. This is, I think, what makes Ret Pally so... It's the main incentive, I'd say, to Ret Pallies in Battlegrounds, because more often than not, someone's going to die around you, so it's kind of just like running around with a 20% damage increase most of the time, and 30% damage reduction, which is why I like Ret Pallies in Battlegrounds. So, now we go to talents. And I'm not going to go over every talent, because obviously in PvP, Consecration's not going to be that good, unless you're going against like a fucking triple stealth team or something. Even then, they're just going to be able to walk out of it. I'm going to go over the choices that I've taken over PvPing since like 7.1, where I got this guy to max level, and what situations you'd want to take certain things. Final Verdict, it's just a flat damage increase to your Templar's Verdict and Divine Storm. This is what I take in most situations. I don't think I've ever used Execution Sentence. I know its damage is reduced in PvP, and actually getting it on someone and lining it up with Judgment, I mean, it can provide decent burst. I don't think I've ever gone out of my way to really try Execution Sentence for a long period of time, but I've used it a few times, and it seems like it's not bad, but it's not good, and I'd rather just have the passive increase from Final Verdict. The Fires of Justice reduces the cooldown on Crusader Strike. I'm going to move my mic. So, oh, there's the voice crack. Didn't mean to bubble. Sorry about that. Reduces the cooldown on Crusader Strike by 1 second, gives it a 15% chance to make your next holy power spender cost 1 less holy power. So basically, if you use this, you'll get a buff up here. It's the same symbol as the Crusader Strike ability, but it basically, instead of costing 3 holy power, it'll cost 2. You can do that as many times as you can get the buff, and that's why I usually take this in most scenarios, because I like being able to spend a lot of holy power spenders, even if it's reduced cooldown. And then this combined with Divine Purpose, which I will talk about later, usually can make some RNG. It's like having free RNG. I don't know, it's really weird, because sometimes you'll just get like 5 holy power procs in a row, and then you'll still be able to spam like 2 more after if you have the Fires of Justice. So that's why I take it. You can also take Zeal. It's basically Crusader Strike, except it does more damage and it cleaves 3 extra targets, I think. Or, I think so, yeah. Change additional target per stack, and stacks 3 times. So it can go to 4 different targets. So let's say if you're running an AoE build, I'd run this. Say if you're in a fight, there's a lot of people around you, I'd run Zeal. Maybe RBGs, I'd run Zeal too, just for the cleave damage. I don't think I've ever used Greater Judgment. I don't think Judgment's on a low enough cooldown to be using for just an extra 2 additional targets and always crits, but if you want to try it, go for it. I don't see why it wouldn't be, I guess, decent. It would probably be like a 6 out of 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate all of these like 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10. So you can really do whatever you want, but like personally, I prefer Zeal, Fires of Justice. Level 45 talent, I don't think I've used Blinding Light or Repentance. I've always just used Fist of Justice because it reduces the cooldown of your one stun that you have whenever you spend Holy Power, and you spend Holy Power a lot. So try Fist of Justice if you haven't already. I don't use Virtue's Blade. I used to before Blade of Wrath was actually implemented into the game in 7.2, I believe it was. And then basically Virtue's Wrath, if you crit, your Blade of Justice will do a lot of damage. Virtue's Blade, sorry. Blade of Wrath basically makes it so your Blade of Justice gets its cooldown taken away. So it'll be on cooldown, you auto attack, it goes off cooldown, you can use it again. I use this almost every battleground unless I'm trying to run a AoE build specific, which I would run Divine Hammer. It basically makes it so it replaces your Blade of Justice with Divine Hammer, which does holy power to holy damage to everyone around you every 1.6 seconds for 9.8 seconds, and it generates 2 holy power. The only shitty thing about this is that you don't get resets, and your holy power generation definitely does go down when you use Divine Hammer. For the 75 talent, I don't think I've ever used Word of Glory. Maybe in a 1v1 situation I would use it, but other than that, I don't think I'd really use it in Battlegrounds anything that much. Eye for an eye, it's definitely useful against physical damage. Maybe in Arena you're going against a Assassination Rogue, Demon Hunter, Fury Warrior, Arms Warrior, anything like that. Use this when they pop cooldowns. You counterattack them. They won't stop attacking you because you have cooldowns up and you take reduced damage. So obviously pretty big incentive to using this ability in arenas or any, I guess, melee heavy PvP scenario. Justicar's Vengeance is usually my go-to now. I used to use Eye for an Eye a lot, and I still will sometimes, but I've been using Justicar's Vengeance more, and it's the same thing as Templar's Verdict, but you use it whenever you get your free Holy Power Spender, and it heals you, and it does increased damage when someone's stunned. So you can get some pretty crazy crits with this. Would suggest it. For level 90, I always use Divine Intervention. Basically makes it so Divine Shield would reduce cooldown on it by like a minute, I think. It goes from like 5 minutes to 4 minutes, which isn't really that big of a difference, but any attack that would kill you triggers your shield. So your shield goes up when you're about to die, and then usually when that happens, you just heal yourself to like 60% health or 70% health is what I can usually get myself to whenever my Divine Shield procs. So it's basically like a kind of lay on hands every 4 minutes. Kind of, you have to heal in the bubble, because I mean you can hit people while you're bubbled, but personally I prefer to just heal myself. There's also Cavalier. Divine Steed now has 2 charges. You can use this if you're getting kite to the dick. Like, if you're just getting kite non-stop, you can use Cavalier. Otherwise, most of the time I would suggest using Divine Intervention. I don't think I've ever used Judgment of Light. Maybe if you're like, the only reason I find this somewhat viable is you're running RPGs, you have a shit ton of melee on your team, you Divine Judgment or Judgment of Light like their healer, and you'd only be healing them for 6,000, which is the most minuscule amount right now. So that's like as much as a Holy Pally, or of healing, whatever it's called. I don't know. Some Holy Pally you'll know. Anyway, so for the last row of talents, I usually run Divine Purpose. I like the RNG version of it. I've always kind of liked Divine Purpose. I know over the years it's definitely gone through some different variations. Now it's just 20% chance to have your next Holy Power spending ability free, and obviously this applies to Justicar's Vengeance. I swear to God I closed that. Okay. You need to stop. I will close that. I'm definite. It's already running. Okay, well, we'll do this. There we go. No more annoying sounds. Okay. Divine Purpose, just talked about that. Crusade replaces Avenging Wrath. I have mixed feelings about this. I feel like if Crusade had maybe starting... So the way Crusade works, you pop it, it replaces your Avenging Wrath. Each Holy Power you spend increases your damage by 3% and haste by 3%. This will count even with Divine Purpose procs, even though you can't use Divine Purpose. I totally forgot about that. Basically, over time, while you have this buff, your damage will get absolutely crazy, because it increases your haste too, not just your damage. But the only downside to this is that if you pop it, you pop your Crusade, you can't get your Holy Power spending abilities on for some reason. You're just going to have that minuscule amount of damage increase, which starts at 3%. That's the only reason I really don't take Crusade. Otherwise, it's a great talent. I do sometimes run Crusade with Hammer of Reckoning because one of my viewers suggested that to me, and I did try it out, and it is fairly fun, but personally I just prefer having Avenging Wrath more. Holy Wrath, I don't think I've ever used this in a battleground situation. I can see it working in Arena. Other than that, deals 200% of your missing health and holy damage to 4 nearby enemies, up to 100% of your total maximum health. Deals 35% of the missing health against enemy players. I've never used it. Seems too complicated. Seems like it's not worth sacrificing Divine Purpose or Crusade over, so that's why I don't take it most of the time. So on to Honor Talents. Personally, I don't like the Ret Pally Honor Talents all that much. Gladiator's Medallion, I always take this, no matter who I'm running, really. I don't see a point in running the other two. Of course, the second row, same as other classes. Sparring if you're running against a melee heavy team. Reinforced armor if you just really don't care and want the extra health and hardiness. I don't think I've ever taken. I like Jurisdiction. Increases the range of your Hammer of Justice, which is your 6-second stun. That's why I take it. You can also use Unbound Freedom. Increases your movement speed by 30%. While you have Blessing of Freedom on you, this would be good against Frost Mage, Sub Rogue, someone that slows a shit ton. I don't think I've ever used Law and Order. Usually Hand of Hindrance, it's somewhat required, but most of the time it's usually not dispelled or removed. Holy Ritual. Allies are healed for 133,000 when you cast a blessing spell on them. Healed again for 133,000 when the blessing ends. I just take this. A lot of these are I suppose I could take Luminescence, which would realistically be the better option out of the 4 or 3, whatever, but this row kind of seems like garbage to me. It's more healing, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, this round, I always take Vengeance Ore. I prefer having that self... You focus on yourself, I guess. I don't like Blessing of Sanctuary. You can use Blessing of Sanctuary. I'm not saying it's definitely a bad ability. I just burped. Sorry. I had to let you guys know, though. It's definitely not a bad ability. Reduces the cooldown of stuns, future stuns, horrors, anything like. Any CC ability reduces the duration of it by 60% for 5 seconds. So if you somehow get this on yourself or an ally before they get stunned, it's going to make it go from like a 5-second to 7-second stun to like a 2-second or a 3-second stun. So I would suggest using this if you really know how to use it. Seems like it would be really useful, but personally I prefer Vengeance Sword just for myself. I feel like the effects of it, I don't have to rely on other people that much. I don't have to rely on myself and timing as much as Blessing of Sanctuary, so that's why I prefer this. Whenever you or nearby allies with your Greater Blessings within 40 yards become a victim to full loss of control effects, your holy damage and critical strike chances increased by 4%. For 10 seconds, stacks up to 4 times, so this can give you up to 16% increased holy damage and crit strike. That's pretty self-explanatory why I take it. Seraphim's Blessing, I don't think I've ever taken this. It basically gives you free Flash of Light whenever you're below 40% health. Don't think it's really useful. You can always just run off and use Flash of Light, and even if you're you won't be able to use it, so. Lawbringer. Judgment now applies Lawbringer to its initial targets for 45 seconds. Casting Judgment causes all enemies within your Lawbringer effect to suffer 5% of their total health and holy damage. I take this in most situations, basically just 5% max health damage to anyone within your target's range. Don't see how that would ever be a bad thing. Using Judgment on the same enemy that you judge last generates 3 holy power. This used to be 2 holy power, I believe, and I believe they bumped it up to 3 recently. Haven't tried it. Would try it out if I was running maybe Greater Judgment. I don't know. It would be definitely interesting to try out. I haven't not taken Lawbringer basically ever. I think I've run 1 or 2 battlegrounds with Hammer of Reckoning, which I'll read it right now. When you allies with, basically, when you take damage with Greater Blessing, you gain stacks. When you get those stacks, you get an ability enabled called Hammer of Reckoning. When you use that ability, you get Avenging Wrath for 6 seconds, and it does holy damage. Again, this is good if you're taking Crusade and you're really close to someone. You can just smack on them for a little bit, because then you get your haste up. You can get a decent amount of abilities off. With Lawbringer, however, I just feel like it's better in most situations, and it's a lot more adaptable. And we're going to the burst. We're gonna show you guys how to burst. So again, before I show you guys what to do, I am no pro. I am no Savix or high-rated Ret Pally. I'm sure they have guides on YouTube somewhere. I'm just trying to show you guys the very basics as to how I usually battleground and how I usually get top damage in most battlegrounds that I do. That being said, I guess I'll show you guys the rotation outside of burst. So basically, first priority ability is Blade of Justice. Obviously does a lot of damage, generates 2 holy power, has a long cooldown. The longer cooldowns that things use, the sooner you're probably going to want to use them, at least for your basic abilities that don't have a super long cooldown. That just probably confuse the shit out of you. What I mean by that is when your core abilities have a long cooldown, do a lot of damage. I'm trying to think of other classes like this. So for where you have Raging Blow, it does a lot of damage, has a high cooldown. For what else is there? Frost Decay. There's that's a horrible example. For Arms Warrior, there's Mortal Strike. You use it whenever it's up. Does high damage, high cooldown. Colossus Smash has a high cooldown, high damage, high, I guess, playstyle effect on your whole rotation. That's, I guess, the best way to explain Blade of Justice slightly. High damage, high holy power generation, high cooldown. You're going to want to use this first. You'll see there, it already procced again. So you're going to want to use Blade of Justice over basically all your other abilities that aren't your holy power spenders. So I just noticed that's a tank dummy. We'll hit this guy instead. I don't like the fact... Okay, we'll hit these guys then. I don't like the fact that there's people like screaming over here. So, rotation. Let me go over it again. Restart. Basically...
State your business.
Okay, that was creepy. You're going to Blade of Justice, use that as much as possible, use it whenever it's up. Usually if you don't have 5 holy power, you're going to be using Blade of Justice whenever it is not on cooldown. When it is on cooldown and you don't have holy power or enough holy power to spend on a holy power spending ability, you're going to want to use Crusader Strike. Usually, ideally, you're going to want to keep the cooldown thing at 1. You're never going to want it to cap over it. So, another, I guess, guideline for this. Basically, Ret Pally consists of using your holy power spenders while you have your judgment debuff on people. So you'll see here, I'm just going to give you an example of the rotation. Basically got 5 holy power, gonna judgment, holy power spender, Blade of Justice, holy power spender, 1 holy power, gonna Ashbringer, and then Crusader Strike. If I wasn't talking and trying to, I guess, talk about what I'm doing at the same time, I probably could have gotten another Templar's Verdict in there. See, the Blade of Justice proc came back up. Get a Judgment again, Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, Blade of Wrath since it came up, Crusader Strike, and get another Templar's Verdict before the Judgment falls off. So basically that's it. You're kind of weaving your abilities in and out of the Templar's Verdict and Judgment kind of window. You're going to want to use Wake of Ashes when you think... I personally use it when I think I don't have any other abilities to use, so when your Blade of Justice is on cooldown and you maybe have 0 stacks or 1 stack of Crusader Strike and you have 1 holy power, then using your artifact ability would be a good idea. You can also use it if you really need the slow on someone, or you need the radiant damage on someone, or you're trying to get someone out of stealth. Anything like that is a good use for your artifact ability, I'd say, because it's a somewhat low cooldown for an artifact ability. So now we can talk about the burst. Burst is the same thing as normal rotation, except you definitely try to use your harder hitting abilities more, which I guess I say that very sparingly. I guess I'll try to show you guys what the burst is like. It's literally the same thing as normal ret, except you kind of want to use... No, it's basically, yeah, I'd say it's the same thing as normal ret rotation. Just keep in mind that your healing's increased. You have Wake of Ashes, use it. It does a lot of damage. Whenever you do get Divine Purpose procs, I would suggest trying to stun someone and use it on Justicar's Vengeance, because that heals you and it increases your self-sustain by a lot. So that would be Ret Pally. Not the hardest class there is. I guess the cons of this class are we get kited very easily, and our healing or our self-sustain isn't what it was at one point. Other than that, I'd say it's an okay class. Like a solid 8 out of 10 most of the time. Anyway, in summary, I guess, of the rotation, try to have as much holy power as possible. Try to dump your holy power as much as possible. And use Blade of Justice as much as possible. And try to generate holy power as much as possible. So, let's say you 5 holy power, you spend it, you have 2 holy power. Let's say you have a divine purpose. Even though you have a divine purpose proc up, it's still going to be there 10 seconds later. You're not going to lose a divine purpose proc. So while you still have 2 holy power, you're ideally going to want to generate it up back to 5 or a decently high number. So once you do use your divine purpose proc, you can use a normal holy power spender in the judgment window time. That's almost as complex as the rotation gets. Other than that, fairly simple class. I hope you guys like this guide, this crash course for beginner's guide to Ret Pally. Basically, whatever it is. I don't even know what this is. It's like a amateur PvP guide. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'm out of breath from talking just for like 26 minutes, but thanks for watching. If you guys liked the video, give it a thumbs up. It helps me a lot. If you guys have any questions, comments, tips, anything, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Said leave really weird there. Brain's thinking too fast. Anyway. Subscribe if you guys like what you see. Follow my Twitch and Twitter in the description below. Follow my YouTube channel. Subscribe. I release WoW videos every day, and I'm breaking into more general WoW stuff as I go along. So, yeah, as always, thank you for watching, guys, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.